This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Monday, January 27th, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
The Trump administration ramping up immigration enforcement in some cities across the U.S. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
President Trump calling on Egypt and Jordan.
We just clean out that whole thing.
I'm Clayton Neville.
The CIA now believes the virus responsible for COVID most likely originated from a Chinese lab. I'm Julie Walker.
President Trump's latest executive order targets how FEMA deals with disasters.
On Wall Street, the Super Bowl of earnings season begins this week. Results come fast and furious. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
The Supreme Court will weigh approval for the United States' first publicly funded religious charter school in Oklahoma. Hi, up in Julie, Washington.
People are listing phones preloaded with TikTok for tens of thousands of dollars. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
All ahead on America in the Morning. Immigration raids continue, part of the Trump administration's promise to begin mass deportation of migrants with criminal backgrounds in the country illegally. John Stolnis with more on the raids and a political battle with Colombia over migrants.
After threatening the South American country with tariffs of 25% on all products coming into the United States, Colombia has agreed to accept flights of migrants of Colombian descent being deported out of the U.S. In a statement, the White House claimed total victory, saying the tariff orders, which would have been raised to 50% after 1 week, will be held in reserve but not signed. Colombia's president had previously threatened a 25% retaliatory tariff on all U.S. goods into the U.S. allies' country. Meanwhile, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement officials say a little more than 950 people were arrested on Sunday, some of them in Chicago, where the agency said 6 of them had convictions for serious sex offenses, others were gang members, and some were previously convicted of murder and sexual battery. Trump border czar Tom Homan asked on ABC's This Week if we can expect this kind of activity from ICE moving forward.
Yes. But you're going to see the number steadily increase, the number of arrests nationwide as we open up the aperture. Right now it's concentrating public safety threats, national security threats. That's a smaller population. So we're going to do this on priority base, as President Trump's promised, but as that aperture opens, there'll be more arrests nationwide.
And Holman had this warning for immigrants in the country illegally who have not been convicted of a crime.
If you're in the country illegally, you're on the table. Because it's not okay to, violate laws of this country. You got to remember, every time you enter this country illegally, you violated a crime under Title 8, United States Code 1325. It's a crime. So if you're in the country illegally, you got a problem. And that's why I'm hoping those who are in the country illegally who have not been ordered removed by the federal judge should leave.
Holman said there is no location that is off limits for raids, including churches and middle schools, saying many MS-13 gang members are teenagers. Democratic Senator Alyssa Slotkin telling ABC's This Week there's a better way.
Yeah, I just don't understand, if the focus and the priority is on criminals, I'm not sure going after an 11-year-old is where you start. And this is the inconsistency between what they're saying and then what we saw happen in this past week, right? Going after places that were not sanctuary cities, kind of in this sort of what felt sort of arbitrary ways.
ICE says almost 2,700 people have been arrested since Trump took office last Monday. The Drug Enforcement Agency of Denver said nearly 50 suspected gang members were arrested there at a makeshift nightclub. The U.S. military is helping provide logistical support at the border. Holman says Congress needs to authorize funds in order to keep deportations moving forward long term. John Stolnis, Washington.
President Trump is asking countries in the Middle East to help clean out Gaza as the ceasefire agreement continues to play out between Israel and Hamas. However, as correspondent Clayton Neville reports, both Egypt and Jordan are both not in favor of the proposal.
Over the weekend, 4 Israeli women held hostage by Hamas were welcomed by members of the Red Cross as crowds cheered their release. It wasn't a smooth process. Tens of thousands of Palestinians waited at roadblocks guarded by Israeli soldiers to return to their homes. Under the agreement, Israel was meant to allow Palestinians displaced from the north to return. But Israel said that Hamas's failure to hand over a detailed list of released hostages meant it violated the agreement. There were riots in the streets, and eventually the Palestinians were allowed to return, but highly discouraged from approaching Israeli military members. This as President Trump discusses the future of Gaza and is urging Egypt and Jordan to take in Palestinians.
I'd like Egypt to take people, and I'd like Jordan to take people. You're talking about probably 1.5 million people, and we just clean out that whole thing.
Clean out the whole thing, said the president in reference to Gaza. He said something has to happen and called Gaza a demolition site.
Almost everything's demolished, and people are dying there, so I'd rather get involved with some of the Arab nations and build housing at a different location where they can maybe live in peace.
About 650,000 Gazans are returning home. I'm Clayton Neville.
The top stories of the day are sponsored by Sleep Number. Sleep better together. Save now on a Sleep Number smart bed only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com. COVID confusion at the CIA. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Snow and rain in the west could provide some relief from California wildfires. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
A storm that moved into southern California this weekend brought some much-needed rain to the region starting Saturday night and then continuing through Sunday. This system will continue to spread some rain into the region with the steadiest focus toward the San Diego area. There's even enough cold air in place for some of the mountains in the area to get some accumulating snow with a few inches possible by day's end. Additional showers from this same storm will also expand into Nevada, Arizona, and Utah, mixing with some snow in the higher elevations. Thanks in part to this rain, most of the fires in and around the Los Angeles area have been nearly fully contained. The rest of the west will be largely dry with sunshine. Highs will be in the 30s and 40s in the north and warm into the 60s in Northern California. Meanwhile, another storm will be moving through the southeast and spread rain through Alabama into Georgia, as well as South and North Carolina. Some snow could even mix in the Appalachians. Additionally, showers will develop farther south from this system through southern Louisiana into northern Florida. The cold front will also extend westward into southern Texas, providing that region with some rain as well. Most of the rest of the plains into the middle Atlantic will have dry weather today with some sunshine. And then farther north, we have an Arctic cold front moving southward today and tonight, expanding from the northern plains into New England. And there will be some light snow ahead of the front, but as the front moves through, there can be some heavier snow showers and squalls, especially in the eastern Great Lakes into New England. This could quickly coat the ground later today and tonight and cause whiteout conditions. That's the weather across America. Montgomery, Alabama will have plenty of clouds today with occasional rain and drizzle and a high of 57. It's going to be a sunny and mild day in North Platte, Nebraska with a high of 52. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Ever since it arrived on our shores, the CIA has maintained that COVID-19 mostly originated from a laboratory in Wuhan, China. But they're not so sure of their own findings, as correspondent Julie Walker reports.
The CIA now believes the virus responsible for COVID most likely originated from a Chinese lab, according to an assessment that points the finger at China, even while acknowledging the spy agency has low confidence in its own conclusion.
I think we'll get to the point where every intelligence agency in the United States will agree with the CIA's assessment that the most likely outcome was from a lab in Wuhan. And we'll get more intelligence as time goes by, and we'll be transparent with the American people about what that intelligence says.
New CIA Director John Ratcliffe on Fox News Sunday Morning Futures.
The CIA has assessed that the most likely cause of this pandemic that has wrought so much devastation around the world was because of a lab-related incident in Wuhan. And so we'll continue to investigate.
The finding is from a report under the Biden administration. President Trump declassified it.
President Trump needs to have the very best intelligence so that when he's negotiating with President Xi and other adversaries, he's able to confront them with the things that we know.
I'm Julie Walker.
President Trump has signed an executive order aimed at revamping the Federal Emergency Management Agency. He's seeking to change how FEMA handles disasters that strike the nation. Trump's executive order establishes the FEMA Review Council, which will be comprised of as many as 20 members and co-chaired by Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. The president said he'd like to see the states assume more responsibility when disaster strikes, arguing those familiar with the state are better equipped to provide disaster response and relief. In sports, the Super Bowl is set as the Kansas City Chiefs, who beat the Buffalo Bills 32-29, will face the Philadelphia Eagles, who crushed the Washington Commanders 55-23. When we return on America in the Morning, investors weigh the Super Bowl of earnings after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments takes a disciplined approach with investing, helping clients navigate volatile markets. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Well, investors have some catching up to do this Monday on Wall Street. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after a losing Friday for stocks, but last week overall, it was a winner.
This has been a Goldilocks setup for the beginning of year in markets. We have good, strong economic backdrop. Earnings are good. There was really nothing getting in the way of a good market week.
New York Life's Lauren Goodwin on CNBC. Looking now year to date, the Dow is up 4.5%, the S&P 500 index up more than 3.5%. and the NASDAQ is up 3%. Investors are bracing for a big week of earnings ahead.
You look at all the tech, minus NVIDIA, are all reporting the Super Bowl for earnings. It's just a wild week for investors. I think you have to buckle up the chin strap.
KKM Financial's Jeff Kilberg on CNBC. He's talking about big tech reporting results, not today, but later this week. Companies like Apple, Microsoft, Facebook parent Meta, and Amazon. Target rolling back its DEI initiatives, while Costco shareholders voted to keep diversity programs, overwhelmingly rejecting a push to review them. Facebook parent Meta also owns Instagram, and it owns Threads, which competes with Twitter, now X, and Blue Sky. Threads users have enjoyed a period of adoption without any advertising. That's about to change. Meta is starting to test it on Threads. Novo Nordisk shares popped 8% on Friday. It makes blockbuster weight loss and diabetes drugs, but it's developed a new drug that early tests show may have outdone what it's currently selling now.
The Danish pharmaceutical giant posted positive early trial results for a new experimental weight loss drug. It showed that patients on the highest dosage lost 22% of their body weight after 36 weeks. That would make it more effective than Novo's current blockbuster obesity drugs, Ozempic and Wegovy.
CNBC's Dominic Chu. Retail store closures spiked last year, the most in 4 years. More are expected to close this year, too. Coresight Research says Big Lots, Walgreens, Party City, 7-Eleven, Macy's, and the Container Store are among the chain's closing locations. But the head of the National Retail Federation says it's not really that alarming.
The bankruptcy numbers we saw last year are in line with or slightly lower than where we were before the pandemic. So for context, we're about where we were before the pandemic. We're nowhere near where we were during the last recession.
National Retail Federation CEO Matt Shea on CNBC. On today's watch list, earnings are coming from SoFi. We get newly constructed home sales numbers for December. Grammy Week would have normally started today, but many events have been canceled because of the LA area wildfires. The awards, though, are still on for this Sunday.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. When we return on America in the Morning, school funding, the Supreme Court to decide. After these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. The U.S. Supreme Court has announced it will take up the case out of Oklahoma in that fight over public funding for a religious school. Correspondent Julie explains.
The nation's highest court has agreed to take on a new culture war dispute, whether the nation's first publicly funded religious charter school should be allowed to open in Oklahoma. The justices said they would review an Oklahoma Supreme Court decision that invalidated a state board's approval of an application by the Catholic Church in Oklahoma to open a charter school. The conservative-dominated High Court has issued several decisions in recent years about willingness to allow public funds to flow to religious entities. At the same time, conservative-led states have sought to insert religion into public schools, including Louisiana's requirement that the Ten Commandments be posted in classrooms. Julie, Washington.
Even though it's still legal now, cell phones previously loaded with TikTok are now sprouting up for sale, and some cost more than a house. Lisa Dwyer reports.
People are listing phones preloaded with TikTok for tens of thousands of dollars on eBay, Facebook Marketplace, and other online storefronts. TikTok was briefly unavailable to the U.S. last weekend, but anyone who had previously downloaded TikTok has been able to use it. Entrepreneurial spirits are hawking phones and tablets that have TikTok and other apps from its parent company ByteDance, such as Lemon 8 and video editor CapCut. Listings on eBay are asking for as much as $50,000. Or after you catch your breath on that price tag, there are some listed for as low as $340. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
America in the Morning for Monday, January 27th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
The Trump administration continues immigration enforcement with arrests in Chicago. I'm Julie Walker.
Rain and tension hover parts of California. I'm Clayton Neville.
An arrest in the shooting of a Border Patrol agent. Israel and Lebanon extend their ceasefire plan. And not everyone on board with a mountain's name change. We'll have those stories.
President Trump's swift firing of inspectors general coming under question. I'm Bob Brown. That story next.
Davos Conference discusses the dangers of AI. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
In the January doldrums, we had a predictable weekend at the box office. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. This is America in the Morning. We begin the week with another cold blast. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
An Arctic cold front will be moving southward today and tonight, expanding from the northern plains into New England. There will be some light snow ahead of the front, but as the front moves through, there will be some heavier snow showers and squalls, especially in the eastern Great Lakes into New England. This could quickly coat the ground later today and tonight, as well as cause whiteout conditions from eastern Michigan into northern Ohio, northern Pennsylvania, New York, and northern New England. Ahead of this boundary, it is going to be quite windy with frequent gusts of 40 to 50 miles per hour and a few gusts to 60 miles per hour near the Great Lakes. Another storm that moved through Southern California this weekend brought much-needed rain to the region starting Saturday night and continuing through Sunday. And this system will continue today with the steadiest rain focused on the San Diego area. And there's even going to be enough cold air in place for some of the mountains around the area to get accumulating snow with a few inches possible by the end of the day. Additional showers from this same storm will also expand into Nevada, Arizona, and Utah, mixing with some snow in the higher elevations. Thanks in part to this rain, most of the fires have been nearly fully contained. The rest of the West will be largely dry with sunshine. Highs will be in the 30s and 40s in the north and warm into the 60s into Northern California. Meanwhile, another storm through the southeast will spread more rain through Alabama into Georgia as well as South and North Carolina. Some snow could even mix into the Appalachians. Additionally, showers will develop farther south from this system through southern Louisiana into northern Florida. And that cold front will also extend westward into southern Texas, providing that region with some rain as well. Most of the plains states into the Mid-Atlantic will have some dry weather with sunshine. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Immigration enforcement is in full swing, with ICE agents heading into a number of cities to arrest illegal migrants. 2 plane loads of migrants were being sent to Colombia, but that nation's president refused to allow the flight to land, which led President Trump to enact immediate 25% tariffs on Colombian goods entering the U.S., before rescinding that order last night after a compromise was reached. As correspondent Julie Walker reports, Trump's border czar spoke about the importance of the deportations and why the action is vital to the nation's interests.
The Trump administration continues immigration enforcement with arrests in Chicago Sunday, where acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove got a first-hand look at ICE in action, along with ATF, DEA, CBP, and U.S. Marshals.
If you're in the country illegally, you're on the table, because it's not okay to, violate laws of this country. You got to remember, every time you enter this country illegally, you violated a crime under Title 8, United States Code 1325. It's a crime. So if you're in the country illegally, you got a problem. And that's why I'm hoping those who are in the country illegally, who have not been ordered removed by the federal judge, should leave.
Meanwhile, Trump's border czar Tom Homan telling ABC this week,
"We're enforcing the laws Congress enacted and the president signed. If they don't like it, change the law." I find it hard to believe any member of Congress is telling us not to enforce the law that they enacted and they fund us to do.
But opening up to anyone who's in the country illegally and going into schools and grabbing them, does that... kids, adults?
The message needs to be clear. There's consequences for entering the country illegally. If we don't show there's consequences, you're never going to fix the border problem.
Homan says the administration will deport as many as we can, starting with threats to public safety and national security, and then...
We're going to do this on priority base, as President Trump's promised, but as that aperture opens, there'll be more arrests nationwide.
ICE reporting more than 1,400 arrests from Thursday through Saturday.
When you have a surge like this, we don't secure that border. That's when national security threats enter the country. That's when sex trafficking goes up. That's when, the fentanyl comes in that kills 250,000 Americans. I don't put a price on that.
I'm Julie Walker.
America in the Morning continues. Rain in Southern California is posing new challenges for a region dealing with deadly and destructive wildfires. Weather conditions notwithstanding, correspondent Clayton Neville reports on a stormy exchange between President Trump and the mayor of Los Angeles.
Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass dismissed speculation that it could be 18 months before victims of wildfires can clear their property. She insisted during a Friday press conference,
"We'll see this happen, is to clear out the debris. And we're concerned right now over the weekend because of the potential rain, but we are going to move as fast as we can, but we want you to be safe, and we want you to be back in your homes immediately."
Sitting feet away from the mayor while speaking with reporters, President Trump pushed back against the timeline.
People are willing to clean out their own debris. It doesn't cost a lot.
Yes, and they can.
You should let them do it, because by the time you hire contractors, it's going to be 2 years.
If a family...
People are willing to get a dumpster and do it themselves and clean it out.
And they can.
There's not that much left. It's all incinerated.
That's right.
He told the mayor she should use more executive action.
I'm exercising my emergency powers. You have to exercise them also.
I did exercise them.
Because I looked. You have a very powerful emergency power, and you can do everything within 24 hours.
Yes. And if individuals want to clear out their property, they can.
Residents demanding more specifics.
We think within a week.
That's a long time, a week. I'll be honest. To me, everyone's standing in front of their house. They want to go to work, and they're not allowed to do it.
And the most important thing is for people
time.
to be safe.
But continued back and forth over the city response, city officials catching grief over a lack of water. President Trump has suggested providing money directly to states instead of to FEMA first.
And the way that we administer these resources, some of which is coming from the federal level, some of which is coming from the state level, we've got to get the bureaucrats out of the way and get the aid to the people who need it most.
Vice President J.D. Vance spoke with CBS's Face the Nation on the topic.
I am sick of the American people having such low expectations for their government. They should demand more of us because this is the greatest country in the world, and that's what Donald Trump's leadership promises to bring back.
President Trump was greeted in California by Governor Gavin Newsom. Trump and the Democratic governor have consistently butted heads in recent years, including over the wildfires. Some Republicans have voiced concern that Trump could use wildfire aid to accomplish other priorities in Congress, but Trump pledging federal help right away as California still works to contain the fires. I'm Clayton Neville.
Arrest following the killing of a Vermont Border Patrol agent, gunned down after a traffic stop near the U.S.-Canadian border. A look at the suspects as Lisa Dwyer has details of two people, no strangers to law enforcement.
The FBI has now arrested 21-year-old Teresa Youngblood in the fatal shooting of a U.S. Border Patrol agent, David Mayland, during a traffic stop in Vermont earlier this week. Youngblood and a German man who died in the firefight Monday had been under surveillance in the days leading up to the stop. Investigators had been performing periodic surveillance of the pair since January 14th, after an employee at a hotel where they were staying raised concerns. Authorities later found ballistic equipment, electronic devices, and ammunition in the car, along with travel and lodging information from multiple states and an apparent journal. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Among the stories we're covering next, Mideast ceasefire, and Trump says you're fired. Those stories and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. America in the Morning continues. I'm John Trout. The White House announced that a ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon has been extended into next month. The agreement between Hezbollah and Israel, which was started toward the end of the Biden administration, was set to expire over the weekend. However, Israel had kept troops deployed in Lebanon beyond the initial deadline, accusing the Lebanese government of not fully implementing its part of the deal, which required the removal of Hezbollah from the area. The ceasefire, brokered by the U.S. and France, will now stay in place until February 18th. Israel invaded Lebanon to stop near-daily bombardments of missiles and shelling into Israel's north, which displaced over 600,000 Israelis for nearly a year. Mixed reaction on Capitol Hill over President Trump's sudden firing of more than a dozen inspectors general. Correspondent Bob Brown explains.
President Trump at last count firing at least 17 inspectors general he considers inept at rooting out waste within the federal government. Some lawmakers say Trump may have broken the law by not notifying Congress first. Kansas Republican Senator Roger Marshall, appearing on News Nation's The Hill Sunday program, agrees with the president.
President Reagan did basically the same thing. Look, these inspector generals have lost their way. And this is part of President Trump's promises made, promises kept. He said he was going to drain the swamp. Over the past several years, record amounts of improper payments from the federal government, $250 billion of improper payments.
However, California Democratic Senator Adam Schiff, appearing on NBC's Meet the Press, says draining the swamp could backfire on Trump.
The American people, if we don't have good and independent inspector generals, are going to see the swamp refill. They're going to see rampant waste fraud. They're going to see corruption. It may be the president's goal here, when he's got a meme coin that's making him billions, is to remove anyone that's going to call the public attention to his malfeasance.
Inspectors general are acts at government agencies, including the Defense, State, and Energy Departments, Housing and Urban Development, and Veterans Affairs. President Trump could decide to rehire federal workers at some point. Bob Brown, New York.
Well, despite the executive order that changes the name of Mount Denali back to Mount McKinley, many Alaskans say they're not in favor of the new old name. Correspondent Donna Warder reports.
In 2015, President Barack Obama renamed Alaska's Mount McKinley to Denali, its Alaska native name. But by executive order, President Donald Trump changed the name back to McKinley, named after President William McKinley, who was from Ohio but never set foot in Alaska. Trump said he restored the name because, quote, President McKinley made our country very rich through tariffs and through talent, end quote. Professor Stephen Haycox of the University of Alaska Anchorage wrote in the Anchorage Daily News that McKinley is the wrong person to commemorate because he was, quote, an imperial colonialist and white elitist, end quote. And Haycox says that Trump's decision is insulting to all Alaskans. I'm Donna Warder.
A poll by Alaska Survey Research found that nearly 2 out of 3 polled are against changing the name of the highest mountain in the U.S. However, there was a stark difference based on political grounds. The poll found that voters who favor Donald Trump approved the switch by a 43-37 margin, but 86% of those who supported Kamala Harris were against changing the name back to McKinley. The Trump administration is urging the U.S. Agency for International Development Workers to follow new guidelines to transform how Washington allocates aid around the world in line with the president's America First policy. It threatened disciplinary action for any staff ignoring the administration's orders. A sharply worded memo was sent to more than 10,000 staff at U.S. Aid that effectively put a sweeping freeze on U.S. foreign aid worldwide. On the first day President Trump took office, he issued a 90-day pause in foreign aid to review if it was aligned with his foreign policy priorities. That's a wrap at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. One of the hot discussions at the gathering, the dangers of ungoverned AI. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech News.
The World Economic Forum in Davos ended last week with the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres lauding the promise of AI, saying that it could help revolutionize learning, help improve healthcare, and support farmers with tools that boost productivity. He then added, but with this promise comes profound risk, especially if AI is left ungoverned. He went on to warn that it could be used as a tool of deception, erode trust in institutions, and disrupt labor markets, and affect the conduct of war. Elsewhere in Europe, there's more discussions about the dangers of AI. Legendary musician and Beatle Sir Paul McCartney has also warned that artificial intelligence could be used to rip off artists and urged the British government to make sure upcoming copyright reforms protect creative industries. Sir Paul went on to say, the truth is that money's going somewhere and you know it's streaming platforms. Somebody's getting it and it should be the person who created it, not just some tech giant somewhere. For more up-to-date tech content, follow me on X at Chuck Palm.
There's a full slate of sports this morning. Let's get after it with America in the Morning's Robert Workman.
NFL Conference Championship Sunday, the NFC Finals saw the Eagles run over the Commanders 55-23. 3 rushing touchdowns for Saquon Barkley, including a 60-yard dash on their first play from scrimmage.
We got together at the bye week and as a team and see what we want to accomplish. And from there, that's kind of when the season took off and won 10 in a row, lost to Washington, finished the season off strong, and here we are now going to New Orleans.
3 more running touchdowns for Jalen Hurts, 7 rushing TDs in all, while forcing 4 Washington turnovers, Philadelphia turning each one of those into 6 points. In the AFC, the Chiefs tripped the Bills 32-29. This was a dogfight from start to finish. James Cook put Buffalo in front twice with rushing touchdowns. Patrick Mahomes ran for 2 scores and threw for another. Josh Allen's second TD pass of the evening tied the game with 6 minutes left. Harrison Butker's 35-yard field goal then gave KC the lead with 3.5 minutes to play, and the defense shut down the Bills' last shot. Kansas City coach Andy Reid.
Every time we play them, it's one to store away and in the history books. They're great, phenomenal games. It's great for the fans. It's great for the league.
So Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans will be a rematch of Super Bowl 57, Kansas City against Philadelphia. The Chiefs aiming for the first ever Super Bowl three-peat. The NBA leading Thunder doused the Blazers 118-108. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 35 points. NHL wins for the Senators, Wild, Golden Knights, Avalanche, and Jets. In the Australian Open men's final, Jannik Sinner blew by Alex Zverev in straight sets for his second consecutive title down under. There was an upset in Saturday's women's final. American Madison Keys beat top seed and defending champion Aryna Sabalenka for her first ever Grand Slam crown. That's Monday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. The Pandas are back when America in the Morning returns after these messages. This is America in the Morning. With smaller releases post-Christmas, it was a slower weekend at the box office, but a good one for Mel Gibson. Kevin Carr reports.
It was a traditionally slow January weekend at the box office.
I never flew a fugitive before. Government witness, not a fugitive. You ready to go?
Flight Risk, Mel Gibson's first directorial effort since 2016's Hacksaw Ridge, flew into the #1 spot, though it did not exactly soar.
Pay attention. That's the good part.
$12 million was enough to win the weekend, but with the C Cinema score, 21% on Rotten Tomatoes, and poor ticket sales overseas, the movie still needs to achieve some lift to break even.
I have a secret, Mufasa. I always wanted a brother.
After 6 weeks in theaters, Mufasa slid into second place with $8.7 million. It was one of 3 Christmas releases in the top 5.
Your boyfriend took our rent money and dipped.
The comedy One of Them Days, starring Keke Palmer and SZA, dropped to 3rd with $8 million, though it should have some decent legs through the colder weeks ahead.
We got a rogue alien on the loose. How do we find it?
Start with a giant fireball?
I love it. Let's start with a giant fireball.
Christmas Leftovers rounded out the top 5 with Sonic 3 holding on to 4th place with $5.5 million and Moana 2 landing in 5th with $4.1 million.
What was that thing, Blake?
It was like an animal, but it was standing on 2 feet.
Last week's Wolfman collapsed into 7th place, a meager performance for the Universal Monsters reboot.
The world cracks apart.
The new Ghost Story Presents from Steven Soderbergh debuted in 6th place, while Angel Studios' Brave the Dark couldn't even crack the top 10 in its opening weekend. I'm Kevin Carr.
Last year, Washington, D.C.'s National Zoo returned 3 giant pandas as they were loaned back to their native China when an agreement between the 2 nations expired. As correspondent Haya Panjwani reports, 2 new pandas were sent back to America and made their nation's capital debut to a happy and excited crowd.
2 giant pandas, Bao Li and Qing Bao, made their debut to the public at the Smithsonian National Zoo in Washington.
It is a great delight to come to the District of Panda
Chinese Ambassador Xi Feng
and witness the debut of Bao Li and Qing Bao together with all of you. Washington, D.C. is no longer unbearable, and I believe all of you can barely wait to see them.
One Arlington, Virginia resident, Tanya Griffin, took the day off work to see the pandas.
It's making me, honestly, it's bringing back some child joy. So it's very exciting. My inner child is coming out.
I'm Haya Panjwani.
America in the Morning for Monday, January 27th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.